Hello.
Hello, hello, hi. How
Hi.
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you,
What?
thank you.
Where are you in Italy?
Near Milan, Cremona, near Milan.
Ah,
1 hour from Milan. Yeah.
there.
You are in New York, right?
I'm in New York.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So good. The temperature, the sky.
Yeah, it's all clear. It's been clear for like 4 or 5 days, and the weather's been beautiful. And I've been out picketing because the Writers Guild were on strike,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I've been doing my duty as a member, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Congratulations. Because here in Italy, we don't have that kind of strike or regulation. So this is very strong for the world, not for America or Hollywood itself. So thank you. In fact, after this, I want to ask you why there is a strike with the writers. So to
Okay.
explain in Italy this thing. Quindi,
Okay.
thank you so much. I'm
Okay.
so happy, really. Thank you so much for your time. My
My
name is
pleasure.
Francesco. I am
Hello.
an aspiring editor, Italian. And
Great.
unfortunately, today, Davide and Max, that are the colleagues of this podcast, work. So send
Ah.
a digital hello to you.
All right. Very good.
Yeah. So it's a pleasure, it's an honor, really, because
Thank
Tom
you.
Fontana is a surname, Italian surname, right?
Yes, very much. Very
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah.
My father was was Fontana, and my mother was Internicola, and her mother was Muscarella.
Ma
So
dai.
so a lot of Italian.
Yeah, yeah. And this guide your career. I don't know, maybe you think Borgia is very Italian topic or
Yes.
not? It's very Italian, Borgia.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it obviously being an Italian American, though I do have dual citizenship. I am a citizen of Italy as well as of the United States of America. Uh, but Borgia was especially wonderful to work on, to write and produce, and because we got to tell a story about Italy at a very, very interesting time, because at that point in Europe, all countries were all trying to become nations. Spain had united under Isabella and Ferdinand. England had united under Henry Tudor, Henry the Seventh. France was trying to unite under Charles, and Cesare wanted to unite Italy, which Garibaldi gets all the credit,
Yeah.
but Cesare was there first. He tried to do it first.
Let's begin from the start. How did your passion from writing born?
Well, started when I was very, very young. My parents took my brothers and my sister and I to see a play, Alice in Wonderland, and a big white rabbit person dressed as a big white rabbit came running down the aisle, and I'm late for a very important date, and ran up on the stage, and I was like, oh my goodness. I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and I went home that night and I started writing dialogue, not really knowing what it was, and I've been writing dialogue ever since. So that's how it started.
Yeah. Amazing. And you studied in some university or something?
I was writing from that point on. I went to a Jesuit high school where I wrote a play that was done our senior year, and then I went to a college and studied theater. So not just writing, but acting, directing, set design, because I believed to be a good writer, you have to know what everybody does. And when I got into television, I also needed to find out what a film editor did, and so many other pieces of the puzzle. And they all made I hopefully they all made me a better writer, because it wasn't just me in a room going like, oh, it's me, it's about writing.
Yeah.
It's about the whole universe of collaboration that we all share when we work together on a project.
And when this path came across to television?
Well, what happened was I was having a play done. I'd written this play that was being done at a theater up north of New York City, and friends of mine came to see it, and one of them was Bruce Paltrow, who is the father of Gwyneth Paltrow. But Bruce has passed away since then. But he was. I was very poor. I was starving as a playwright. I was very unsuccessful, and Blythe Danner, his wife, wonderful actress, Blythe Danner, said to Bruce, "Well, you ought to give Tom a job writing an episode of your new TV series, which was St. Elsewhere, a medical show." And so Bruce did that. He asked me to write an episode, and then he asked me to write a second episode, and then he made me a staff writer. So unlike most people, I had a sort of an attitude about television, like, oh, I'm a playwright, I'm a very fancy person, which I wasn't, because I was making no money and not successful. But you have these illusions in your head.
Yeah.
And to back then, this was be 1980, roughly. If you wrote one episode, you got paid $12,500, which was twice as much as I had made the previous year. So I thought, I'm rich, I can retire.
Yeah.
I'm done writing plays, yay, And then he offered me the second one, and then he offered me a job, and suddenly I was living in LA. I was living in New York prior to that. And my wife and I moved to Los Angeles. Well, my whole career is a mistake. Just a total mistake. But I have to live with it.
A good mistake. A good mistake. Yeah. And talking about a big TV series, Oz. Tell me something about the creation of this TV series, because in Italy, I think I write in the email that I send you, is not very much known, because we don't have HBO. I don't know if you know, clearly we don't have HBO. So you have to pay, because we have Sky, payment channel that is similar to HBO, but it's not HBO.
Yeah.
So this year came out Paramount Plus, and on Paramount Plus, for the first time, there is the complete series of Oz. Usually dubbed in Italian for the first time, because the last two seasons was missing in Italy. So
well, that's brava. I was doing a series for NBC called Homicide, and it was a police show. And at the end of some episode, we didn't always get the bad guy, but unlike CSI, we didn't always get the bad guy. But when we did, they went off to prison. And I started to wonder, well, is that the end of the story? They go to prison and that's the end of the story, no more story? And I thought, well, maybe I should explore the idea of what happens to people when they go to prison.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of research, visited different prisons all over America, different levels of prison. And I went to the networks and I started pitching it. I pitched it at NBC and I pitched it at CBS and I pitched it at ABC. You have to remember, back then there were only 4 networks and HBO. And HBO was a movie channel. It wasn't, they had no TV series, right? So I pitch it at all the regular networks and they all tell me drop dead. And so I found out that HBO was looking to do their first drama series. And I flew out to Los Angeles because I was living back here in New York by then. I flew out to Los Angeles, had a meeting with Chris Albrecht, who was head of HBO at the time. And he said, okay, write something and we'll shoot something. So we shot like a 15-minute little example of what the show would be. And he watched it and he said, okay, keep going. So that's how Oz was born.
Yeah.
I have to say, it took, I admired HBO because they were like, they didn't know anything about drama series. And so they trusted me. And I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to do this series about a prison, I want it to be as authentic and honest as possible. And they never told me, they never, I think in all the years we did the show, they only gave me like 5 notes the whole time, which is extraordinary because you usually get 50 notes in every episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing because right now you can see the changing of television, of what is now something very cinematic. And I think that kind of TV series and your TV series, it's at the beginning of this changing after before the Soprano, before the Vari, because
Yeah.
are clearly masterpiece and thing that we study for now, because the television changed so much. So and HBO is part, I think, of this incredible revolution, I think.
Yes.
I don't know. You can tell me. You can tell me.
No. I agree. I think that it's more of an evolution than an explosion, in the sense of the first show that I did, the one I did with Bruce Paltrow, was on NBC, and it was a medical show called St. Elsewhere. And it was very groundbreaking. No medical show prior to that on television had ever broke the rules the way we broke the rules. All the medical shows were doctors are God, just do what the doctor says.
Yeah.
And ours was our doctors made mistakes and blah, blah, blah. Then I did Homicide, same kind of thing. It was a very different cop show than had ever been on network television before. And our characters were very flawed and not always the best human beings on the planet. And so for me, it led to Oz. And because like that's what I'm saying, and it's an evolution of storytelling and taking risks. And the fact that Oz came at the moment it came, and it opened doors for people like David Chase and David Simon, obviously, to tell their stories. So much of TV, at least here in America, is if a show is successful, if I wrote a show about a giraffe and it was a hit, there'd be 5 giraffe shows on television in the year. And what HBO did was say, well, we don't want the same thing. We want your thing. We want what Tom Fontana wants to make, and we want what David Chase wants to make, and David Simon wants to make, and Alan Ball wants to make, you know. And so that was what was extraordinary about it, is that they had no, their brand was, there was no brand. It was just talented writers doing what they wanted to do. So I was very lucky, you know, very, very lucky.
And you think that is like this now? There is this creative, this freedom, this right now?
I think less so. I think less so. I think, you know, I think the business has always been about the money. But I think now it's so much about the hit show, as opposed to nurturing a show. You know, letting the audience find. You know, you take a show like Breaking Bad, which was not successful initially. It was not highly rated initially. But the network stayed with it and believed in it, and it became a huge hit. But if they had done, you know, if it was today, they probably would have canceled it after one season. You know, people, audiences, they need to, when you're giving them something they've never seen before, you have to give them the time to get comfortable with it, to understand it, as opposed to, you know, I mean, how many shows, I watch shows and I go, oh, I don't want to watch this. And then I'll go back and I'll watch a later episode and go, oh, it's better. I like it. I'm going to watch more of it now, you know?
Now, television with the streaming services, all that stuff is going big and bigger. So
yeah,
became really important to do a good TV show. So
well, I think the most important thing, and this has been true of television since the beginning, both comedy and drama, is it's about characters. And if the audience wants to invite a bunch of people into their home on a weekly basis or a binge basis, they'll do it. But it's about characters being not likable, but compelling and interesting. And so you go like, well, who is this person and what's going to happen now? And so you know, I don't know if bigger is fun. Game of Thrones is fun. But I don't know if bigger means everything has to be bigger. I mean, if you look at Oz, was all shot on a soundstage. It was tiny. You know what I mean? I mean, compared to a lot of other shows.
Exactly.
And yet people came to it because they were like curious about what the hell we were doing.
Yeah. And tell me now about your writing process. When you began to writing, what happened?
Okay.
How work? I never write anything. How work? I know it's difficult to explain.
No, I get up at 5 o'clock every morning, 5 in the morning, every single day of my life. Whether I'm sick with the flu or whether I'm hungover, it doesn't matter. I get
like
up,
an athlete.
Yep, and I go to my desk and I write. Sometimes I write for an hour. Sometimes I write for 12 hours. It depends what I'm working on at that particular moment. But it is, to me, it's very important, the discipline, and this goes back to the Jesuits who taught me discipline. It's important for me to maintain that. And I have been doing it literally since I was 16 years old. And I'm going to be 72. So that's a long time of getting up at 5 a.m. And what it does is, it is like an athlete. You're absolutely right, because your muscles are toned. You're going like, it's like if you go to the gym every day at a certain time and your body says time to go, okay, let's do it. That's what happens as I'm coming out of sleep. My mind is already thinking about the story, the scene, or that I'm going to sit down and write first in the morning. So that's the thing. It's obviously harder when I'm shooting a television series because I have to be both places at the same time. But I've managed over the years to work with some really talented writers who are producers and directors, so that I don't have to be there right at the beginning of every single day of shooting. I can come a little later if I'm working on something that I need a little more time to do. That's the other key thing. I would like to take full credit for everything that I've done, but there's so many people involved in the process. One person who was also passed away, Jim Finnerty, who was my line producer, the money man on Homicide and Oz. He made things happen. Same thing with Borgia. I'll tell you a very quick story. We had a line producer named Rick McCallum, and I was doing research about our friend Cesare, and I read that Cesare Borgia used to go hunting with panthers. Now I'm reading this and I'm going, okay, I could not have made that up in 100 years. And how much do I love Cesare that he went hunting with panthers? So I call up Rick McCallum, our line guy, and I say, we're shooting in Europe, and I say, can I have a panther? Cesare had 2 panthers, but I didn't want to be selfish. I asked,
wow. At least one.
And he said, I don't know. No one's ever asked me to get a panther. Let me make some calls. And he found us a panther, and we shot. There was an Italian trainer who had a panther, and there we were with our panther. So, my point is simply that you have to keep trying to go like, well, I've never seen this, and if I've never seen it, probably not many other people have seen it. So that's what I've been trying to do all these years.
Yeah. And talking about young writers, what did you tell to young writers? For example, Davide, my friend that is on the podcast, is a writer. Write a couple of screenplay for cinema. And so what is a possible...
Well, I think a writer has to decide what kind of writer they want to be. And what I mean by that is, you can be a writer who writes Marvel movies, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It takes a very specific skill, and it obviously can be very lucrative. You can make a lot of money doing that. You can also choose to be a writer who wants to write very intimate, personal stories about families, friendships, where nothing explodes and there are no monsters. There's just people. And though that's a tougher road, because it isn't as splashy and sexy as a Marvel movie. But if that's where your passion is, You know, I have a friend who writes horror movies. I hate horror movies. I never watch horror movies.
Yeah.
Watching the news on television is more horrifying than anything I see in a horror movie. But this friend of mine writes horror movies and makes a good living writing horror movies. And you know, so I think you have to find the stories you want to tell, and then and then you have to commit to them. In the same way with Oz, like that, I said I want this to be authentic and as honest as possible. You have to then be as true to yourself, true to your beliefs, true to your talents, to write whatever it is, whether it's a Marvel movie, a horror movie, or some sweet comedy or some terrible tragedy.
Yeah. And what's your type? How define yourself, your type?
Well, I would say I would go back to the thing about character. I'm fascinated by human beings and the flaws and the virtues of human beings. I love history, so I'm always inclined to try to write things that are historical, though they're very expensive. So the chances are small that they will happen. But I think that's the side of it. I like to know the dynamic between two people. Let's say two people locked in a cell in a prison. What's the dynamic between them? The dynamic between a father, his daughter, and his son. The father happens to be Pope. The daughter is a countess, and the son is a military general. Yeah, that's my type. My type is humanity. But I don't write. I guess what I could say is that I don't write genre films.
Yeah.
You know, like action films
horror
movies, or comedies. You know, rom-coms. I don't write genres. I will write a story that maybe is a romantic comedy, but only if the characters, you know, are compelling enough for me to want to write about it. Yeah.
And you ever think to go to the TV, to the cinema?
You mean write for the cinema?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I have done rewrites of feature scripts where what happens is, you know, the way movies are mostly written is that somebody writes it and then they bring in somebody else to rewrite it. Then they bring in the director and he wants somebody else to rewrite it. And then they bring in a star and then he wants somebody to rewrite. I would be the last guy in, where you'd sit with the director and the star and they'd go, you know, I think here he would say, hello, honey, let's go to breakfast. And I would go, hello, honey, let's go to breakfast. It's the easiest money in the world to make, but it's not writing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I stopped doing that. And there are a couple of ideas that I have for movies, but they would be very, very small. There are no Marvel movies in my future that I can see.
I imagine. Yeah, because we're missing a historic feature or historic TV series. I love it. It's pretty difficult, and like you said, cost very much.
Yeah, yeah. But there are a lot of great stories out there, historical stories to tell.
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, if you really do the research, the real story is so much more interesting than anything you can invent. Yeah. I mean, Cesare with Panthers. Who would
yeah.
If I'd written that, you'd go, "Oh, Tom, Panthers."
Yeah.
You know,
No, it's impossible.
never, never happened.
Never. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and a little strange question. I finished to watch for me, for my personal opinion, a great TV series, Succession. You watch it?
Succession.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't seen all of it, so I can't really
Okay.
speak of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I will say, Brian Cox, who's an old friend of mine, is what I have seen. He's brilliant in, and I know some of the other actors. So, but I haven't. So don't say anything because I haven't seen the whole.
Nothing. You have to watch it because for me, for my personal point of view, it's one of the greatest thing of writing and acting of the last year for me.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
It's incredible. And so you can tell me something about the strike. So you can, I want to make it clear because here in Italy we receive news from America clearly, and we don't have a point on this. Tell me something about this.
Well, here's the thing, and this is something that the last time we went on strike was 2007, 2008, and our contract was actually up in 2020, but because of COVID, we all decided, okay, you know, management and the writers decided we'd just wait until we could meet again. In that time, between 2007 and 2023, streaming came into being. Now, none of us imagined streaming in the way that no one imagined cable back in the day. But here was streaming, and all of a sudden, Netflix is hugely successful, and everybody wants to get into it. Everybody, all of them, every Paramount and you know, Disney, everybody. So what they did was they spent enormous amounts of money to start these streaming companies. And as always happens, they overflooded the market. So they're not making the kind of money Netflix makes. But their attitude is, well, we have to now fix the money problem.
Yeah, the gap.
Yeah. What they're asking us to do is pay for it. They're asking us to pay for their mistakes. Meanwhile, they're still getting $30 million bonuses. Okay.
Yeah.
The average, what used to be was a writer would be hired for a series, and they'd be hired for, let's say, a month or 2 months prior to the start of production while the scripts are being developed. Then they were kept onto the show throughout the production period. And that's how, certainly how I learned how to work in television, how to be a showrunner, because you're exposed to casting, you're editing, and being on the set. And what they decided was that they would only hire writers for 6 weeks instead of months and months. 6 weeks. Well, I mean, you know, I'm fortunate. I've been doing this a long time. I have some money. If you're a young guy, you're your age and you have a wife and children and rent or a mortgage and car payments and school payments, you cannot live on 6 weeks of employment, which is, you know, maybe $36,000 for the whole year, because then they also have you restricted. So if the show gets picked up, they can bring you back and you can't work anywhere else in the interim. So financially, because of what's happened with streaming and the whole streaming model, the writers have become basically Uber drivers.
Yeah.
You know, we work when we go, okay, I'll take this ride.
Bye.
Yeah,
see.
and then bye-bye.
Yeah.
The other thing is the artificial intelligence, which again did not, when nobody, it wasn't on anybody's mind until 2 days ago, practically.
Yeah.
And we, the writers, and also in the long term, the actors and the directors see this as an existential concern, because we could be completely replaced, especially those poor guys who write Marvel movies. Because I mean, you know, you put it in the computer, boom, boom, boom. Give me a hero, give me a villain, give me a plot, boom, 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 and the thing spits it out and says, here's your movie. So we want protections against artificial intelligence being used instead of us. We have no problem with artificial intelligence helping us, and that's the division. And what the management said was, well, we won't discuss this at all, but once a year for the next 3 years, we'll have a meeting with you to discuss it. Well, in 3 years from now, the world will have changed again. You know what I mean? So for them to want to punt the ball, it means that they're like going like, we'll just wait and think. What I don't think they understand yet is the executives can be more easily replaced by AI than even the writers can be. Because what do executives do? They give notes. So I could just as easily give my script to a chat bot, and it could give me the notes. I don't need a human anymore. So there, I think they don't understand how much danger they're in by like being unwilling to talk to us about it. So those are in my mind. I know there are a lot of other issues.
Sure.
But those are the two things that I think about when I'm out there, picketing with my fellow writers. And I try to be out there every day, even though I have a bad knee. I'm out there hobbling along because it's my 4th strike since I became a Writers Guild member, and this is the most energized I have seen the writers, and we have so many other unions on our side. We have the Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, Actors Equity, the Teachers Union, IATSE, the Teamsters. It's amazing how the support we're getting, because I think everyone sees this truly, to use the phrase again, as an existential threat. That this is not just about these stupid writers. It's about all of us potentially going to be replaced. And all of us needing to make a living for our families.
And do you think that this could change something to do this kind of strike for a long period of time? You can possibly change.
It could be. I mean, I'm not good at predicting how long these last, but I do have a sense that we're a month and a half, or a month and a week in, and I don't see the passion from the writers going down at all. In fact, it feels like it's getting more.
And you think that the executive or something notice these kind of things, or now not?
If they aren't noticing it, then they're stupider than we think they are.
Yeah.
And there was the international day of solidarity with the writers, and I mean that was I mean there were people from Ukraine supporting us. Now they have other things on their minds. People in Ukraine.
Yeah.
But they're willing to support us, and so I think it totally is amazing, and
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
This kind of solidarity, and you think that this is affect on cinema industry? This is affect only writer or editors, actors, directors?
I think it'll have. I think it'll have a long-term effect on whether it goes well or it goes badly. It will have a long-term effect on the entire industry, because we all have something at stake here, and we have to protect it. So and the studios are doing what the studios always do. They're only talking about the money.
Yeah,
it's the money. It's the money. It's the money. But that the studios will always have a short-term view and never the long-term view. They will look at, well, what was the hit last weekend at the movies? Let's make another one of those.
Yeah.
Well, what's the biggest TV show on right now? Oh, we'll make 3 of those. And they don't have a sense of where television or where films can go, which is why when you work with people like I did with Chris Albers, Chris Albrecht on at HBO, and Grant Tinker and Brandon Tartikoff at NBC, and Gary Levine at Showtime. I mean, these are people who have a respect for talent and a long-term vision for the future of our business. Those are the people you really want to work with.
It's amazing. I hope for everyone. Really, it's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. Yeah. The solidarity from the industry, I think. So it's good to see something strong, and to make some kind of announcement, or we stay here. We stay here. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I can't wait for the strike to be over, because I have a number of projects in development. 2 of them would be shot in Italy. So if they happen, I'll be in. Well, I don't know if I'll be in your town, but I'll be back in Italy, which I love.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's an historic thing.
I can't say.
Can't say. No. Don't worry. I know how this works. Don't worry. We wait. But it's beautiful that you come back in Italy. So your experience in Italy?
Oh, love it.
General.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, well, first of all, when we were doing Borgia, and we'd be shooting in these little towns, in these little that haven't changed since the Renaissance. and I'd wake up in this beautiful little, house or inn or thing, and I look out the window, and I'd go, this is wonderful, and I'm being paid to be here. This isn't like I had to pay to be here for vacation. This is my job, is to be here. So that's quite awesome. And the crews are great. They're so talented. We just had the best art directors and makeup and hair, and everybody. It's a joy to work there. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So.
And last thing that I let you go to the strike. I don't want to keep you here. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Can you show me one tattoo that you have?
All right, wait a minute. Can you see it? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I see it. It's incredible. Yeah, it's something. When I read the story, it's impossible that the creator, the tattoo, it's impossible.
Yeah, well,
It's true. True.
You know, the story, it was that I kept saying, yeah, no, for the credits,
Yeah.
somebody getting a tattoo. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people
Don't
were like,
worry.
who's stupid enough to do that? I go, I don't know, we'll find somebody. Turns out I was the stupid one. So,
Oops.
what are you gonna do?
Amazing. You have your tattoo on every episode of the series.
That's right. I bled for my show. How many showrunners will say that?
Exactly.
Real blood.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Francesco.
It was amazing, really. I'm so honored. Come back to Italy to shoot something.
I cannot wait.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Write to me.
Right.
Write to me when you come back to Italy. Let me know.
All right, definitely. All right. Ciao.
Have
Ciao,
a good
Bella.
day. Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao.